You ready to start, Mike?
I am ready whenever you are.
Okay. Well, I just, not to be redundant, I just want to welcome all of you and thank you for coming again to continue in the review process for the voting machines, and do want to recognize that we have the chair or the chair designee from both political parties here, Casey Long with the Republican Party and Mr. Haller with the Democratic Party. But he's evidently designated now to be here by the chair, right?
Oh, I thought you meant incoming.
No, I said designee.
Yeah.
That's not that's not elect. It's a designee. Sorry, I thought I made it clear.
Misunderstood.
Anyway, as I said before, I think our voter department is doing an excellent job of making sure that we're well equipped to make a good decision, because as we all know, it's an expensive step and we don't want to make the wrong decision. So we appreciate all of you coming, and any feedback, input that you want to give, we'll certainly be eager to receive it and consider it. And especially want to thank Mike, because he continues to line up the vendors and get them here on a regular schedule, so we appreciate that. With that said, Mike, it's...
Okay. Thank everybody for being here this afternoon. Appreciate it. And for those that are here, I did leave some feedback information on your desk, so if you don't mind filling that out and either handing that in to me or emailing me is fine too. I just appreciate your feedback with today's presentation as we go through these vendor presentations. With that said, we have Election IQ here today, showing the Unison system. And this is Daniel, just say your last name, just easier.
Chalupski.
Here from...
I'm glad you asked him to do that.
As I said, if I had to interview and do pronunciation, I probably would not have been hired. That is definitely a weakness. So he will be doing a demo. The demo is going to last about an hour and 15 minutes, the first part of it, and then we can, anybody that's able to stay, he's able to do some hands-on as well. And then he did bring a, how did you describe that? A precinct, basically being able to set up
Voting booths to actually, we can actually set up a mock precinct if we want to.
Yeah, if we have time or someone's interested in seeing that, we did lug that up from the card today too. So with all, go ahead. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you so much for having us here. We appreciate you asking us to come out and show you what we think is the best system on the market currently. As Michael said, my name is Dan Chalupski from Election IQ. I also have Michael Voris with me here from Election IQ with us as well. We're going to go over, like I said, in about an hour and 15 minutes, we're going to go over the Unison voting system. We also spoke with Michael, and he was interested in seeing, also works with electronic poll book. So this is an electronic poll book. It's actually made by a different partner of ours called 10X Software Solutions. So we'll touch on that as well, and we'll kind of talk about how they can interact. One thing I want to make clear just before we even start is, as I talk about these, I tend to talk about them as a complete system because that's how we implement them, but either one can be used without the other. So don't think that, oh, if we get one, we have to get the other. That's not necessarily the case. So that's always a question I get. So I'm going to spend, like I said, about an hour and 15 minutes going over a few things, and then towards the end, we'll take any questions from the board, especially because I know you all have other commitments that you need to get to. So I'm going to go through a quick PowerPoint, just kind of give you a very brief overview of who we are, who Unison is, and what the system is, and then we'll actually dive into looking at the system itself. Okay? Let me grab my clicker over here. Yeah, the way so everyone can see. Election IQ was founded in 2010. So personally, I've been in elections since 2003. I actually started in San Diego County, California. So that's 1.4 million registered voters and 1,649 polling places, with 10,000 touchscreen voting system, units. So I got thrown into the fire very, very quickly, and since then we've done everything from 3 precinct counties all the way up to, like I said, San Diego. So we've seen just about everything. We are a full service election company, meaning we can do anything and everything a county needs, from actually selling the equipment, maintaining the equipment. I spent 2 weeks ago, I spent time designing Bradford's new storage warehouse for them, for hopefully this equipment. So we help with logistics, we help with repairs, maintenance. You know, if you want us to code your ballot, we can. You can do it. But anything you need at any point, we're there for you, and that's our goal, because if you're successful, then we're successful, and that works. We call ourselves, we started to kind of transition and call ourselves a systems integrator, because really what we do is we take the various systems. So you might buy this from us, but say, well, we have someone else's poll book, or we don't want a poll book, and we've got Vista as our voter registration system, and so our job is to come in and make it all work seamlessly so that you don't have to worry about, well, if we buy this, how are we going to make sure this talks to this? That's on us to make that work for you, take a burden off your shoulders. And one thing we've really focused on is personalized attention to service, because when we started, we kept hearing that no one even picks up the phone. No one even picks up the phone. And we thought it was really weird when we started getting compliments, thank you for picking up the phone, because to us, that's just common sense. But apparently it wasn't happening. So we really try and make sure that we're there for you every step of the way, rather than, okay, here's your equipment, and all right, we'll see you, and maybe you'll get a hold of us, or maybe you're not. And then one of the things we try and do is bring the most innovative products to you. So that's why we have 10X poll books, and that's why we have Unison voting equipment, and there's a host of other things that we're not even getting to talk to today because there's not enough time, that are industry-leading technologies that we're able to bring to you so you can be at the forefront of election technology and processes. But Unison specifically, they were actually the first 2005, which is the new set of voluntary voting system guidelines. They were the first ones to get certified in the nation. They were also, as you see there in parentheses, the first EAC certified warehouse / manufacturing plant. And what that means is the EAC can stop in anytime unannounced and audit everything going on in the building. And Unison saw that and they said, that's something that our customers need to know. They need to know that we're on the up and up and everything's going right. And then if the EAC wants, they can simply drop in and see what we're doing. And if something's not right, everyone's going to know about it. So that's something that was very important to them. I believe a couple others have gotten that since, but it was a good, I think, 3 years before anyone else got it after we did, because that was something that Unison noticed was a good thing. Unison's approach, they try and leverage as much innovation as possible while keeping things incredibly simple. So you're going to hear me time and time again in the next hour and 15 minutes say, simple, easy, because at the end of the day, you're working 16 hours as poll workers, you're out there for 16, 17 hours, whether it's the beginning of the day and you haven't had your coffee yet because it's still brewing, or it's the end of the day and you had too much coffee and you're falling asleep. You wanted to say, okay, this is easy. I don't want to have to hit 15 different buttons and reconcile 15 different things. I want it to be as smooth as possible. So that's really what they've tried to do. You'll see the word open there. We are a Linux-based system. And are there any IT or techies here that know about Linux? Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Okay, so Linux is far and away the most secure operating system of the commonly used operating systems out there. And we can get into a debate later, because I'm not going to spend the time, about how and why. But for a variety of reasons, they are the most secure operating system out there. And what we do is we take that, and then we actually custom compile our own version and harden it. And what that basically means, and you'll see this again when we get to security, is we essentially tell this unit or any of the other units only accept the following files. So if someone were to even get into it, which there's a whole bunch of other security to prevent that, and they load a file on that the system says, well, I'm not expecting this, so I'm just not going to even do it. And it just goes, nope, not going to happen, and shuts down. So from a security standpoint, they've done a really good job of making sure that nothing's going to happen to these, and obviously security is a big topic right now. Since 2011, in the markets they participate in, they're not in all 50 states, but in the states they are in, they have outsold the next 4 leading competitors. Okay, and those are some big names like ESNS, HART, Dominion, combined. So those last 4 combined, they've outsold them since 2011. So to me, as a former election official, that's one of the few things I need to hear. Okay, obviously if across the nation they're outselling everyone else, there must be something that everyone else knows that I don't know yet, so I better at least pay attention to that. So that's one reason I bring that up, because to me, as I said, as a former election official, that tells me something. So let's jump right into the system. So a quick overview. Right here we have the FVT, or Freedom Voting Tablet. It is fast to set up. It is very easy to use. Sets up in under a minute. It is also very durable. So you'll see this is mostly off the shelf. All right, we have a tablet in here. This is an Android tablet. Inside we have a printer, which is it's straight out of the grocery store. It's a Star Micronics printer. You have a USB hub in the back for all of it to communicate with each other with. So everything here, with the exception of the case and a couple of cables, is off the shelf. But we've wrapped it into a proprietary enclosure, and what that allows us to do is you don't have wires, you don't have a bunch of different things you have to lug. It's all in one simple package. As you'll see when I put the top back on, you simply have one handle, and you carry it like a briefcase. So it's very, very easy and portable, but at the same time, it has off-the-shelf equipment, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, about why that's important. We then have the OVO, which is right here. And this is our optical scan unit. This has been a workhorse for a long, long time. This actually runs Linux on it. There's actually essentially a PC inside of here that runs Linux. So from a security standpoint, it is extremely secure, and to date we have not found anything else that is anywhere near as secure as this. But the other part is it's easy and it's flexible. And when I say flexible, what I mean is this. And we'll talk about the FBT when I actually turn it on and show it to you. But for short, this is the ballot that comes out of the FBT, out of that ballot marking device, okay? But some people also vote on regular paper, depending on how you deploy it, and we can talk about that ad nauseum towards the end. This scanner takes both. So Michael and his staff don't have to worry about what are we doing here, what are we doing there. I had a meeting with one county yesterday, and they said, well, we have some precincts that are very progressive. They might all want to vote on these. But we have some rural areas with a lot of Amish, and they're not going to like that. They're going to want to vote on this. Well, the nice thing is, it doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want to do. You can do a precinct by precinct approach. You can have all precincts be the same. We give you a toolbox, and it's up to you on how you want to use it. We try and be as flexible as humanly possible, because we don't ever want to be the limitation on your elections. We don't want to be the one that says, oh, you can't do that. We want to be able to say, fine, as long as it's within the law and you can do it, that's fine. So that's what we try and do. And when we get hands-on up here, I can show you some other features as well. There we go. We have the mini. So these two units generally are in the precinct. And over here we have the back office. This is the mini. This is what you scan your absentees on. Okay? This little tiny guy right here is all you need, plus a laptop, to scan your absentees. So from a form factor perspective, it can sit on someone's desk, it can go easily in a closet, on a shelf. You don't have to have a rolling cart or anything else for it. It's super, super easy. And Canon, we have two scanners for the back office. The Canon scanners are the most durable and functional on the market. Anyone here who knows business back office equipment knows Canon's reputation, the fact that they are the gold standard when it comes to scanners. What's interesting is, of the 5 major manufacturers, 3 of us all use Canon scanners. So again, that tells you that obviously, there's something there when everyone's going, okay, we're going to go ahead and use Canon, and I'll fire that up and show you that in a minute as well. And then, oh, this is what we call the OVCS. So that's the mini. This is the big brother to our mini. I don't bring it because in Pennsylvania, because of the way your laws are with absentees, with the exception of Philadelphia and Allegheny, most counties don't need it. But we do have the big brother. It's about 120 pounds. It's not light. It's the size of a large laser printer. But again, it's very fast and it's very flexible. So it can scan, as this one can, either size ballot. So again, we try and be as flexible as humanly possible. And then the software. So I talked about Linux. The lead developer for Unison is actually the head of the EAC task force on new voting system requirement development. I forget the acronym at the moment, but he is the one that leads that. So he knows what's happening. He knows where everything is headed. So one of the benefits we have is that he makes sure all that stuff is included. So a lot of the things that are going to come out in the next generation of requirements, which, depending on how fast the EAC works, who knows when that will be, we'll say in the next 5 years, fingers crossed. A lot of that is already incorporated into the system now. So that lessens the need for us to scramble to catch up once they're actually released. So again, it's simple, it's easy. Des Moines, Iowa, Polk County, which is about 200,000 registered voters, used to take them 2 weeks to program their ballots. After switching to the Unison system, it now takes them 4 hours. So it makes your life, Michael, really, really easy. The other nice thing is it is scalable, meaning you can set it up however you want. I talk about flexibility and scalability. So Michael you can have a laptop on your desk that just has the module for coding a ballot. You can have a laptop just to run this with just that information. So for instance, you could have, some counties do this, some counties will have either a temp or just a county employee from another department come over and help out on election day. You said the former election director was going to come back and help. Well, you could say, okay, you can give them access to this, but they don't have access to anything else. So they can't, even though they wouldn't be able to, but they can't say, well, I looked at the results early, or I did this, or I did, that's all they can do. They can sit there and they can scan. If you were to choose, for instance, to do on-screen adjudication, which we can talk about, again, you could have someone that has just that access and can't do anything else. Or, as I have here, this laptop has the entire suite of software on it, and I can run an entire election off it. I actually have counties in Utah that run entire elections off of one laptop and this scanner right here. Now, they are all by mail counties, but nevertheless, they run everything off of here, from building to scanning to reporting. So, again, we can go as big or as small as you want, depending on needs, desires, budgets, and the like. And one of the things that sets us apart right now, I'm sure some others will catch up eventually, but right now we're the only federally certified risk-limiting audit integrated system. What that means is, have you talked about RLA in the county at all yet?
Not really.
Okay.
County level.
Okay.
I actually heard about it, obviously, through the...
Yeah, I'm sure you were aware, but I didn't know. Okay. So risk-limiting audit is, at its simplest level, is taking all the voted ballots and taking a statistical random sample up to a certain percentage or a previously defined threshold number, looking at those ballots and essentially recounting them and verifying that the system counted them as humans would count them. Now, imagine if you do this by hand. Michael, can you tell me what, on the last election here in the primary, what the total turnout was? Do you remember the rough number of voters that turned out? Give me a ballpark.
Like 14,000?
14,000. So if you had to run a statistical random sample, do you have anyone that has a master's degree in statistics working for the county?
If we do, I don't know.
Okay, so first we got to get someone to do that, to write the algorithm to make sure that it's a true statistical random sample. And then you have to go fish through 14,000 ballots, because what it's essentially going to tell you is pick ballot number 1, number 6, number 352, and you've got to go count through, pick those out, and then you have to sit there and say, Thomas Jefferson? Yeah, good. Okay. Bill Russell? Yeah, good. And sit there, okay, that one's good. And to do that, so imagine doing that for anywhere from a couple hundred to a couple thousand ballots. It's going to take a long time, and it's very prone to error from a human perspective in terms of sorting everything out. So what we have done is we've integrated it into the system where you simply open the module, you tell it, I want 5%, 1%, a flat rate of 300, depending on the laws as the Secretary of State and the Department of State push them out to you. It then goes, runs the algorithm, grabs those ballot images. All of our scanners take images of the ballot front and back simultaneously as it goes through the system. It goes through the system, it finds the appropriate ballot images, and it brings them up one by one. And then, based on your processes, usually at least 2 people, whether it's an R and a D, whether it's a nonpartisan board, that's up to you, and of course the state, depending on the rules they put around it. But the team sits there, they look at the screen, whether it's a laptop, whether it's a monitor, or you can even put it up, some people put it up on a projector and they have 6 people sitting around. And they go through, and each ballot has an accept button. You say accept, great, next one, next one, next one. It makes going through it very easy, and it's all auditable. So because you're logged in as users, and each person, you can even have the option to initial. So if you had 10 people, you had a board of 10 people, they could each sit there and initial. It would take forever. Please don't do 10 people. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen anyone do 10 yet. I've seen 2 and 3. Someone tried 4 and they quickly backed off of that and went back to 2, but you could if you wanted to. So you can go through that, and then it generates a report for you so that you can see that and submit it to the state, post it on your website, parties, whatever you want to do. So we are the only one that are federally certified for that right now, and it makes people's lives a lot easier. What I can tell you is that what I have been told as we do our research, and the people we know at the state and who have moved on, is that the governor has a 7-phase plan to improve elections and election security, election processes. So far, I believe we're on phase 2. I don't know. He's not letting out exactly, even though we know some people that know him. He's not letting out how the phases are exactly structured. We think we're on phase 2. The first phase was putting out the edict that everything has to be paper from now on. The second phase was requiring the replacement by the end, or at least the choice to be made by the end of next year. Two of the things we believe are going to happen and have pretty good credible sources on this is, one would be the dreaded word of decertification, which will force everyone's hand. It's just the timing is we're not sure on. And 2 is going to be risk limiting audits. This is the way the country is going. Colorado already does it, and they're getting praise all over the place. Utah is looking at it. Some other places are looking at it. So from your standpoint, because obviously the poll workers won't have to deal with it, thankfully, so they don't have to worry about it. But from your office's standpoint and from the board's standpoint, this is something that's going to be coming down the pipe eventually. It's great in that it allows you to prove that this election went perfectly, and here's the proof. But it adds a layer of complexity. So we've tried to make that as simple as possible for you. Some other features worth noting. So there's little things. So for instance, poll workers, you'll like this. What happens at the end of the night when you're all done with the ballots? You're getting the ballots out of the ballot box. What do you have, or you're printing out your reports from your DREs rather, and what do you have to do? What's one of the forms you have to fill out? You fill out the write-in form, right? You have to put the your absentees out, fill in the write-ins, right? Post it on the wall, okay?
It's like a tally sheet.
Right, exactly, the write-in tally sheet, the triplicate, carbonless triplicate form. But what we do is all the ballots go in here. There's no separate compartments in this ballot box, as you'll see later. That allows us to stack them and nest them for better storage, and it goes easy on your warehouse or your storage room. So you say, we're gonna have to sort through all those ballots to find all our write-ins? No, that would be madness. What we do is, because we take an image of the ballot, we can print you a nice little report. Now this one's only too long. I had one that had like 80 of them. I don't know where it went. But this nice little report, if I turn it sideways, you'll see the write-in as written by the voter. What makes this nice is you can simply print this and tape it to the window. You don't have to do anything with it unless Michael wants you to. And Michael, what you get is you can get these printed, and we can also get it out of the system, and you can actually tally your write-ins and do it this way. So again, you don't have to go find every ballot and do that. So you don't have to touch these ballots more than you have to. So that's something that's really nice, and it has saved people a lot of time. On-screen adjudication, and again, we can get to this in the hands-on portion, but I want to make sure to get through all this before the board might have to leave. What we can do, and I'm sure you've probably heard about this from other vendors, is because we take a scan of every ballot, image of every ballot, we can actually eliminate the process of hand duplicating ballots, if you want. This is one of those optional things, and I don't know how the three of you feel and how you and your staff feel, but we can digitize the process. Anything in our system, anytime you do anything, it is logged with your username, the date, the time, and exactly what you did. So, as long as you and your staff manage the user account. So for instance, I used to work for Diebold for a short time, and I can walk into any Diebold county in the United States, with a few exceptions, and half of them have never changed their password since we delivered the system. So I go in and I put in the username, and I leave the password blank, and I hit enter, and I get into their system, and have full rights to that server. Because they just didn't think about it. It was not made, a big deal was not made about it back then. So as long as you say you have your own login, someone else has their own, so that it's not just administrator, and then I have no clue who that is. But if you put your users in and you give them each that, then we know exactly who has done what and when. So that if anyone says, well, I didn't do that, well, you were logged in. So if you walked away and someone else walked up, so again, I hate to put it back on you, but we are able to do that as granular as you want or as large as you want. So for instance, I will be very honest, right now, I have some accounts on here that are just generic because I'm the only one doing it, but if Michael needs to do something, he can just grab it. He knows, for a demo, he just knows how to get in here, and he knows the generic password. In an election setting, I would never do that, ever. Even in a certification setting, I won't do that. But for demos, I do, because that way if I get the flu and someone has to fill in for me, and I forget to email them, they know what to do. So again, we can go as large or as not. So again, with adjudication, it will show you the image of the ballot on the screen, as filled out by the voter. So it's like looking at this, it's simply on the screen, and I'll show you that in a little bit. And you simply go down, if there's an overvote, that race will be red. You simply click on it, and there's just a drop-down box, and it says, which candidate do you want? You click on it, and the ballot has been adjudicated and digitally remade. Yes?
Can they type the name in?
No. So, well, do you mean for a write-in or just in general?
For the write-in.
Okay, so what we
Or
do...
either one.
Yeah, so what would happen, I'm just going to pick a race off this ballot. So this one for sheriff, we have Lucille Ball, Bob Hope, Carol Burnett, and Lily Tomlin, okay? So let's say in this case, I see that this voter filled a ballot out for Carol Burnett. But let's say there was a little pen dot right up above her because she started to put Bob Hope and then she moved to Carol Burnett, and so it flagged it as an overvote. We would bring it up on the screen, we'd say, for sake of argument at least, well, we can tell the voter intent was for Carol Burnett. So what happens is when you click on that race, it'll simply give you a little button next to each name, and you simply click on Carol's name, and what happens is it remakes the ballot digitally, and it does two things. One, it updates all the results across all the reports. So there's no manual entry, so it says, okay, this race was blank because it was an overvote and I didn't know what to do with it. And now you've told me it's Carol Burnett. Excellent, so I'm gonna go add 1 for Carol Burnett in all the reports. It logs it, of course, we talked about that. And then you can also create what's called a ballot report. Again, I will show you that. And what it actually does is it creates a second ballot, the remade ballot. So you have the original and you have the remake. So you have a complete audit trail. The report is actually 7 pages long, and it has the original ballot image, front and back. It has a list of, this is what we originally read the ballot as. When it went through the scanner, either this one or that one, as you'll see. This is what we read. You then adjudicated it, and here's what you did. Here's the remade ballot, and now that we're done, now this is how the system reads the ballot. So you have a step-by-step auditable process by which you can tell who did what. And when you think about it right now, you might have whether it's 2 of your staff or the board or whomever remaking these ballots, either in return board or just before, and then they sign off on them. Unless you have a camera over their shoulder, you come back a month later and say, why did you do this? It looks like they might not even remember. And here you're going to have an exact transaction log of what they did. If they clicked on Carol Burnett and then said, I don't think that was what it was, I think it actually meant Bob Hope, and they unclick, it'll say, change to Carol Burnett, change to Bob Hope. If they could do it 15 times, it'll log it as 15 different transactions so that you know what they're doing.
Respectfully, I don't think that is the answer to my question.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I'm trying to find out if you have to handwrite names in or if you can type the names in so that the election board
Right.
can read what is written.
Okay, if you use this, it will be typed in. If you do a write-in on this unit, the ballot marking device, the voter, will type it in. So the election board can read very easily, John Doe. On a paper ballot, if you vote on this, let's say an absentee ballot or in-person paper, then the voter would write it in, and then you would get the report that I showed you, and it would be the voter's handwriting. And the way the law is written, this is what you have to adjudicate it on. We can't use OCR technology to recognize handwriting recognition software. We can't use that because it's not our ability to determine what they want. So if they write it in messily and you can't determine it, that is up to the board or Michael's staff to determine.
Forgive me for being a little slow.
No, you're fine.
You cannot type in a write-in.
On this you can. On this you can type it in.
And where is that coming from?
There are 2 different ways to vote on this system. You can either vote on the ballot marking device, and it really comes down to the processes you want. Obviously, there's a budget component to how much you want to spend, so there's different factors that come into play. Some people want all their voters to vote on ballot marking devices because we have all sorts of safeguards in here, things like it won't let you overvote, it will warn you if you undervote, things of those, things you're used to now with your DREs. And it prints out a ballot that looks like this. And in this ballot, you can type in a write-in. There is no writing whatsoever on this. So if you want to put a write-in, you get a keyboard and you'll see here in a minute, you'll type it in, absolutely. The other way to vote, either for absentee voters or some people, usually for budget reasons, sometimes it's because there are many counties around the state that are all optical scan, they're all paper ballot, and so they want to stay that way. That's fine, that's their prerogative. So then they would all vote on this type of ballot. So a voter would walk in, and instead of being directed to a machine, would be handed a paper ballot, and then go to an old school, if you will,
So
voting
those are
booth.
pre-printed.
These are pre-printed.
What is the difference in price between that ballot and the other one?
Well, that's a good question. This ballot runs, depending on, this is an 11-inch ballot, so I'm going to use an 11-inch price. Obviously, 14, 17, it gets a little more because there's physically more paper there. But this runs right around 35 cents a ballot. Does depend on quantity a little bit. Runs about 35 cents. This cost works out to about 10 cents a piece. What we do is you print in this system as a roll of paper that looks like this. Okay, it's thermal paper, specially manufactured for us in France. I don't know why France, that's what they did. And it sits in this printer. And when you go ahead, you fill your ballot out on the unit, and you hit print. When you're all done and you're happy with what it is, again, you'll get to see this in a minute, and then it prints this out for you. So the way this works out, based on the price of this roll and the number of ballots you get out of it, works out to about 10 cents a ballot. Again, 14 and 17-inch ballots are a little longer, a little more money. Okay. The nice thing about this, and I usually get to this later, but I'll jump to it now since you asked, is there are other vendors out there where when you want to vote on the ballot marking device, they give you a slip of paper that looks like this, but blank, with a barcode. You slip the piece of paper in, it reads it, you vote, it marks it, you take it out, take it over to a scanner. The difference is those blank ballot stock have to be either A, pre-printed, in which case if you run out, you have to call the manufacturer and say, I need to print, and of course on election day that's not going to happen. Or you have to buy an electronic poll, you are forced, if you will, if you want to call it forced, to buy an electronic poll book with a special little, well, we don't have it because we don't need it, but a special little unit that would sit right here, and you would take the blank one in, you'd stick it in, you'd check the voter in, and then it would print the barcode on there for you. But that's about another, I believe, what I've been told is about $600. So it ups the price. Here, having this roll of paper is essentially like having a ballot on demand printer in every precinct. You don't have to worry, as long as you have enough of these, and if you run out, you simply send a runner with more. These are blank. They don't, it doesn't matter which unit I put this in. They're not specific in any way, shape, or form.
What's the shelf life?
7 years.
7 years.
7 years. If it's kept within its temperature range, you can't keep it in a 105-degree, building, and you can't, well, cold doesn't bother it as much. So yeah, so they last for very long. I don't know if you want to buy 7 years worth of paper. I can get you a great price on it if you buy 6 pallets of paper, but I don't know if you want to store it for 7 years. But yes, it does do that. So we're good there. So yeah, and we'll get into touching and feeling all this, and some of these questions will be answered. I just want to make sure we get through some of it quickly. But again, so that the adjudication portion, going back to that, with regards to write-ins, I will just touch on this, and I'll show it to you later. Is what you do is you will enter the list of write-ins, type them in, Michael will, into the system. Say these are all the write-ins we have. And then when you go through the adjudication, if you use the adjudication process on screen, you would simply then just go in and they'd be in a drop-down box, and you would simply click on the write-in race, the drop-down box would activate, and you would say, okay, where's Joe Smith? Okay, there's Joe Smith, done, and all your reports are instantly updated. So it saves you from having to do the manual entry, hand entry, stuff like that. The ease of programming, I talked about how far it goes down. One of the great things about this, now we can do your programming, we're happy to do it for you. We do it for many, many counties. But one of the great things is a lot of the work has been taken out. So once you put in your precincts, your districts, and we call them contests instead of races. Once you put all those in, you do that once, or 4 times, one for each election cycle, election year. And once you do that, when it comes time for a new election, Michael, all you do is you say, new election, it says, okay, and it says, here are all your districts, which ones do you need? They're already pre-populated. Any formatting, language, translations, if you ever need those, automatically is brought over. So if it's a presidential and you need everything, you say all districts. You click one button, add all. They all come over. You just added all your districts. You say I need these contests, click, 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 add. It adds them. It adds the vote for, it adds the text. The only thing it doesn't add is the candidates because they change. So you would then just go in and add each candidate per race, and there you go. There is an import you can do, but what I tell people is once you've done it the first time, there's no need to do that because it's already there. So it's going to make your life orders of magnitude easier. That being said, there are counties that from a liability standpoint say, no, I want the vendor to do it so that we can blame them if something goes wrong. We're happy, hey, I know the way it works. I used to be an election official. We're happy to do that if that's something you want, but I know some people like having the ability to do it. The ease of testing is really simple. All you do, because this is a ballot marking device, you're not having to test, is this recording votes properly? All you do is you go in here, you hit print my test deck. It says what precinct would you like to print for. You put the precinct number in, and it spits out a test deck. You take the test deck over to your scanner, whichever one you're using. You feed it in, and you print your report, and you upload your results, whichever one you want to do. There's a couple different options, and you're done. So you don't have to stand there at each machine, unless, the one caveat is, unless Jonathan and company make you, which I will adamantly argue against on your behalf if you want me to, but they will sometimes say, no, we still want you to hand mark that. I don't know that they're going to. They haven't really given us a clear indication. Technically, the way the certification reads, you're free to do what you want. So,
Okay, I thought you lost me there.
Okay, that's
What am I marking?
test deck.
Oh.
Sorry. So what happens is
you
each
talk about
unit-
Zero tests or?
all of it. Zero
Okay.
test, fully voted. It's called a waterfall, so first position gets 1, second position gets 2, third position gets 3, so on and so forth.
Got it.
It will print that for you, and you take it over and scan it, and that's all you do. So there's no more standing in front of each machine, voting a pattern, and then going on to the next one, and voting a pattern, like you're supposed to. I don't know if you do that. Oh, yeah, well, I won't tell anybody.
Yeah, the VREs, the way they're set up is that there's an actual thing that
Well,
they go through, I guess.
Right, well, so, when they were created, there's an essentially auto LNA that they all run. Debo does it, ESNS does it. DOS technically wants there to be then a manual one on top of that. The vast majority of counties don't do that. Sorry if I just outed you.
We contact through our vendors, so.
Okay,
yeah,
so it's, yeah.
That's on them. So can I blame the vendor, like you said there?
Sure, go for it. Hey, that's why you have the vendor do it, right? So you can blame them when.
I'll have to check on
you
that,
can-
'cause maybe
You need
they
to
do it,
refund us
and-
all our testing funds for the last 10 years, yeah.
I'll have to check on that.
Technically, I would have to look into the Ivotronics requirements just to see, because the state puts each system has its own little, quirks and things, but technically you're supposed to. Because the concept is they don't want to rely on the computer algorithm, Again, that was done 10 years ago, but yeah, definitely you want to check into that. Scalability, so the great thing about the system is if on election day, let's say especially presidential, you say, oh my gosh, we have amazing turnout at precinct X, whatever it might be. It's very easy to add a unit because these units are not precinct specific. I can, in a flash, tell this scanner, hey, I need you to be precinct 35. I don't have to burn a special memory card. By the way, we use thumb drives for all our memory cards. I don't have to burn a special one. The county information is on this. I simply go into the maintenance menu and say, hey, you're precinct 35. And it tells me, okay. On this unit here, it will give you whatever ballot you tell it to give you. So in a flash, you can simply, if you have it prepped and it's LNA'd and appropriately ready, you can have it sitting in your office, have 2, 3, 4, whatever you need spares. And if one breaks, or you need an extra one somewhere because there's amazing turnout, you can simply have a runner, grab one, and go. They turn it on, and it's instantly ready. So you can scale up and scale down. And what this does is, it allows you to be more efficient from your logistics perspective. So for instance, now this is much bigger than yours, but Lehigh County, right? Tim has 800 touchscreens that he sends out in a presidential. In a primary, he sends out 596, I believe. So he does that because he knows in a primary, but we had a primary about 3 years ago, I believe it was, where there was a local race, the mayor got put in jail or something like that. I don't remember exactly all the reasons, but it was a very hotly contested race. And it turned out that in that city, the turnout was just ridiculous. It was great, but it was much more than he expected when normally you get 20%, if that, on a municipal primary. So he had to burn more memory cards, send them, anyway, it took a minute. Here, you would just grab, if you have them prepped, you have 3 or 4 prepped, whatever it might be, you simply grab them off the shelf, drop them in, turn them on, you're good to go. So it makes situations like that, so you can say, we're not gonna send up quite as few because it saves us on the delivery cost, or it saves the force, putting them in the car, things like that. And you can react very quickly as opposed to having to go, oh my gosh, I gotta program all this stuff. So it makes it nice for you in terms of the scalability. Same thing with election to election. So I saw the hand, I'll get to you in just one second, as soon as I note that if you have, let's say 3 of these, like a county is looking at right now, and they said, but we only need these in presidential. Great. If you're running an election and you have 2 of these out, and you're going, wow, we got a lot of absentees, we need to get through this faster, we're not gonna get out of here on time. You simply go to the closet, grab the extra one, turn it on, and you're up and running. There's no, we gotta program this or program that, you stick the thumb drive in with the appropriate data, but that's it.
Time to scan.
2,000 an hour.
What?
2,000 an hour. So,
Gotta do the math, okay.
I could do the math for you, but, and that's an 11-inch ballot, so how often do you go to 14 or 17, or 18?
14 or 17.
Long, 18 inches.
We normally use the long ballot.
You normally use the
right
long,
now,
okay.
Only just because that our absentee is the only thing we have paper right now, and so
Right.
that's just what
What you do.
in their hand counted. So we don't
Okay,
have
okay,
to
so you're
worry
not even
about
worrying about it,
scanning or
okay.
any of
So,
that stuff,
so roughly how many absentees do you get?
well, it's just like 200 and
Okay.
We're
Alright.
50 in a
lucky
normal.
primary 250 if
Yeah.
Okay,
but-
so
up
what?
to 3,000 in a.
Okay, so
presidential.
yeah, you're okay. So what I actually have some counties do is they don't buy that at all. They use all their absentees on one of these.
Okay.
It's cheaper. You can simply order 3 extra than you have, so you can take one of your spares. It's very easy to grab one off the shelf. You don't have to have a dedicated unit, so there's some cost savings, there's some efficiencies, and they simply do it on here. 200 does $7.50 an hour, so it's not as fast as that. So you would have to, feed them through, but they do that. I actually have a county in Utah that runs their entire election on one laptop and one scanner. They get about 1,500 to 2,000 ballots an election. So that's certainly an option, and it makes it certainly much cheaper. So, and a presidential does 3,000. Are you on the cusp? If you use 2 of the, we'd have to run some calculations, and depending on when you're used to getting out of here, when you're trying to get out of here, those types of things, we'd have to play with that. But that's easy enough. I saw a hand in the red earlier.
So then technically, we would need one of these machines if we're going to that system.
Right.
For every machine that we have in our polling
If you
place
want to
right
keep
now.
the same, if you want everyone to vote on these, then yes, you would need a 1-to-1 replacement. You have to have at least one of these to meet ADA requirements, Americans with Disabilities Act. You have to have at least one of these in every polling place for that. But yes, if you wanted to go with a one-for-one replacement so that you had everyone voting on these, you would need to have one for each one you have now, yes.
Yeah, and just so you know, I told him to present both ways. Present that we would have possibly paper ballots with just one ADA at each precinct, so to present that way, but then also the possibility of a ballot marking device similar to what we have IVOs now, because that decision really hasn't been made yet, so that's why you're kind of hearing about paper, and then you're also hearing about ballot marking,
Well, I
because
was
he's
just
doing his
concerned
best
that
in
we
an
would-
hour I gave him to present both ways.
So, and,
Yeah.
yeah.
I probably should have said that at the beginning, and I apologize.
okay.
But that's kind of why he's talking about paper, but then also talking about ballot marking devices. We know we have to have at least one at every precinct because of ADA,
Yeah.
but it's possible if we want to do a ballot marking like we do IVOs now, that it could be set up like, I can't remember off the top of my head how many you have at your precinct, but I know some people have 10, or 9, like
We have
Vermont, they have
6,
9,
yeah.
so. Something like that. So it
Yeah.
all just would depend on which way the board wants to go, if, which vendor, but all that's kind of like,
Okay.
has to be decided.
Okay.
And one of the things we can also do is, I have had some places that have told me, and it really depends on voters and poll workers and the combination thereof, but some have run tests side by side with either a Diebold touchscreen, a ESNS Ivotronic, a Hart E-Slate, and they say that they can actually, if you have 6, you might be able to get away with 5, because these are a little faster, they're easier for the voter to use, and so when they run like a real focus group, they say, we can actually get by with 5. That's something, what I tell all our prospective clients is, you let me know what you want, from a budget perspective, from a, we have Ivotronics now, so we'd like to keep that, give me all your parameters, and we'll sit down, whether it's around a table like this, or on the phone, or what have you, and I'll say, okay, this is what we can do. Here's option 1, 2, 3. I will give you as many options as you want based on the criteria you give me. So, because it's my job to make sure you get what you want and fit that into your parameters. So I've seen about probably 9 different permutations of how to set these units up. There are 2 main that 99% of the world uses, and there's a few outliers that for special situations. But I saw a hand.
You confused me.
Sure.
I thought you said you have to put the precinct information in the big scanner.
You have,
But
yes.
then you said you can do absentees, and since absentees are usually multi-precinct.
Right.
So are both machines capable to do more than one precinct?
Yes, so in an absentee situation on this, I would simply go in and say there's a button that says all precincts. So instead of saying precinct 12, I would say give me everything, hit the all button, and then it would take all
And
precincts.
then the ballots are printed?
Yes, the ballots are
with the
printed,
appropriate-
yes, so there's
the
2
appropriate
places.
precinct.
Yes, one, it'll be somewhere up here, we work with you depending on what you're used to and what you want. We will put either the precinct name, number, whatever identifier you want us to use in the top of the ballot. In this case, they put a big 1, they use a really big 1 here. I've seen people put, where you see this little red, if you can see the little red 2.0, I've seen people put the precinct name, whatever Michael wants. But then the system is reading this down here, and in this barcode it would say, this is the precinct, in a primary, this is the precinct, this is the party. All that information's down here, so the system knows how to categorize it and which bucket to put in it, so to speak. Okay, did I see another hand go up? Yes.
I'm looking at durability, and I see these screens, both of these, kind of one is almost perfectly vertical, and the other one is slanted
Right.
up. And I saw you also rest your hand on the top.
Right.
So my question is,
Mhm.
if you sold these before,
Sure.
how much pressure does it take to break it off of the
Sure.
roost, A, and B, the screens being broken, how often does that happen?
Very rarely. I have only had one person ever break these, and that's because they literally dropped the entire unit. I mean, they were holding it, they were kind of holding it like this to show someone, you know, and they were saying, see, look at, and there was a poll worker training, and the trainer dropped it, and it fell on this, and then it broke. Now, you'll notice this is vertical. This can be changed. I normally do this when I do hands-on, but this can go anywhere from this, all the way down to that. So you can actually set them to not be anywhere near vertical. So I have places, typically I put it up vertical so you can see it, because when I turn it on here in a minute, I want you to be able to see it. Typically we put it right at the standard voting position is right about there. That's what most people use. Some people, when they put it on one of our voting booths at the ADA height, the booth is lower in that one spot, they will put it in the vertical position so someone in a wheelchair or seated otherwise can see it easier, whereas someone who's standing would be better at this angle. So you can customize it. A voter can say, I need this changed, and it's up to you whether you want the voter to do it. But the poll worker can help them change it. The voter could actually do it themselves if they really wanted to. It's not that hard. I know, I say that just to say it can happen. I wouldn't recommend it, but it can happen. But it can be adjusted. I know some places where poll workers will just naturally, if they have 6, they set 6 in this position, and then they set 1 for really tall people, if you know, down in Philadelphia, wherever most of the 76ers live, and they're really tall, they'll put it at this position so it's easier for them. It's very flexible, so it's whatever you want. You can mandate that it always be in this position. That's just a process. So this is all in a metal enclosure. So if you want to take it down, so to speak, you would have to flip the entire unit off the table. All right. I mean, I'm sadly 230 pounds, and I can rest my entire weight on this, leaning on it, and it's not happening. Okay, there's a full metal plate behind here, so we're not going to break anything. The only way it would be happening is if I were to pick it up, and I've really got to work at it because there's so much bulk and a low center of gravity. It's not going to happen in a realistic environment. Like I said, there are thousands of these out in the field, and I know of one that's actually been broken. Unless UPS runs a forklift through it. There was a couple others like that, but that was an anomaly. On this one, because no one's voting on it, this is simply giving you messages. A voter scans their ballot in, it says good, or there's an overvote, there's an undervote. Typically, no one even interacts with this, and this can actually be put down if you wish. Okay, the only time it needs to come up is the memory card is right here, the thumb drive is right here. That would be the only time it actually needs to come up, and only the poll workers or your staff would be doing that. So we rarely see these damaged at all. Again, you drop it off a forklift, it's going to break. But in normal operation, very rarely does any of this break, and that's one of the things they did. Even the bag, which I think did I go back there? I guess I must have. It even has special padding that is meant to conform to the back of this to protect things, because it's not straight across the back. There's a little bit of a bump, and so we form fit everything to make sure that it's secure. So.
Do you have more presentation, or are you entertaining questions at this point?
I have a little bit more, but if you have a question about something I'm talking about, I'm happy to answer it.
Well, the other ones are general.
Okay, all right, yeah, if it's something specific, absolutely. So security, I'm gonna go through security kind of fast, because half the time people go, we don't know what you're talking about, because I can get too technical sometimes, so I apologize, but I wanna make sure we talk about it. We use a multi-layered approach, and so what we do is kind of like a cake. We take one type of security and we put another one on top, and another one on top, and another one on top, so that even if, and we've had penetration testing and this has never happened, to my knowledge, but even if you got through one layer, there are multiple layers on top of that. We use a hardened Linux platform. As I said, Linux is one of the most, if not the most secure operating systems out there. We then customize it and called hardening it to only react to our files and nothing else. It's an open source platform, which means, and this is one of the reasons why Linux is so great, Microsoft Windows, you have a certain number of people sitting in an office building out in Washington. And when they're developing the software, they're the ones in charge of looking at it. They build it, they release it, and it's out to the public. And then what do all of us do? We buy it, we install it, and then we're installing patches every week when they push them out to us. Yes, sometimes for security, but also when they're new, half the time Windows has lots of bugs in it, because until people start using it en masse, they don't always know. With Linux, it's the exact opposite. Because it's open source, everything that's based on the base of the software is known around the world. There are, I'm going to guess millions, I don't know the exact number, but there are millions of people using this in one form or another on a daily basis, which means they have eyes on it. They're developing platform, applications for Linux, which means they're always interacting with it. So if a bug is found, it's known very quickly, and I don't want to say broadcast, and I'm simplifying this, so if there's any IT folks in the room, like I said, I'm keeping this very simple to not overwhelm anyone, but that's then known, and it can be fixed very, very easily. So it's extremely secure because there's lots of people looking at it at all times. And there's a bunch of other reasons. We can go into the fact that because it's used less, we used to say this about Macs, now that iPhones are out, the Mac operating system, or iOS, is much more prevalent. People didn't used to try and hack Macs because not enough people used them. People at Disney making Pixar movies use them, and no one wanted to hack Disney apparently. Okay, now people actually want to hack iOS because it's used so much. There's not as much to be gained by hacking Linux as Windows, when you can infect 90% of the PC population out there. So Linux, like I said, is extremely secure. We're FIPS compliant. It's a federal security requirement that we have, so that we meet. So just know that. You can look up FIPS 2.0, and you can see all the various regulations that go along with that. And we use the highest standard encryption right now, which is 256-bit. So we keep layering things on top of that. And then on top of that, we even add some more, which is everything is role-based. I talked about this earlier. It's role-based access, meaning Michael can be allowed to just code an election, but not touch any of the equipment. Someone else in the office can be the only one that touches the equipment and loads the software, or loads the election onto the equipment. Someone else can be the one that just does absentee scanning, or Michael can have access to everything. So you can control it based on how secure you want to get. Obviously, places like Philadelphia, it's very granular. Clarion County, Cindy has access to everything because she's the only one in the office. So it just depends on what you want to do, but we allow you to chunk it however you want. We have keys. These are digital keys, these are not physical keys like I have here. These are digital keys. What has to happen is these keys are put by region. So as Election IQ, I have an Election IQ code that goes on it. It's a key. So God forbid someone compromised Adkins, who is in the Midwest, the Unison dealer out there, they compromise them. They can't send anything out here that's going to compromise your equipment because it's under the EIQ key. So by breaking up into regions, we further decentralize any type of security. And so by having that decentralized portion, that's better. Additionally, we take keys another step further. Are we noticing a theme here of how secure this is? Where every time you generate a new election or a new version of the database, it scrambles that encryption. So if someone has a copy of the old database and you're on a new database, it's not going to match. So we layer that quite a bit, and that goes into file verification. Every time these boot up, it verifies all the files on the unit. So if anything has been changed, that's a question I get. What if I turned this off, took the memory card out, loaded a malicious file on here, popped it back in, closed this up, and no one knew about it? Well, assuming that no one noticed that the security seal on here was broken and everything else, it wouldn't do it because it would check all the files and say, wait, there's a foreign file here, I'm not doing anything. Okay? So that's another way. Security hash, it goes along with the digital keys. I'll leave it at that. I talked about the regional firewall. And then, of course, at the end of the day, there's audit logs. So you can see everything. So if there's ever a question, whether it's in a court of law, whether it's just the board, you have a question, Michael has a question, you want to do a biannual review of your processes, whatever it is, you can pull. You'll be here for a long time reading them, not actually waiting for them. But once you print them out, you can see anything and everything that's ever been done on this unit, that any of the pieces of equipment here. So you always know what's going on. If there's ever a question, you can zoom in, date, time, et cetera, and zoom in and find that. So from a security standpoint, you're not going to get better than this system. And I could keep going, but I'm not going to because we're going to run out of time. Reports, just real quickly, this is what a report looks like. This is an election summary report, okay? So it's laid out very nicely. I will send you copies of all this so you actually have a full one. I have to blow it up so people can actually read it because it's there. So it's very nice. You can customize these in terms of what shows up, whether you want the registered voter number to show up, whether you want winners to be in bold, things like that. You can. Those are all just a series of buttons when you generate the report. But that's reports. All right. That's actually from a different part of the presentation. Well, so now it's time to actually look at these because I want everyone to be able to see them. So I'm going to start actually in the back office. Now I know this may or may not be something that you want to do, but I'm going to show you. Pardon me. I don't mean everyone has to stare at my rear end. There you go. Log back in. So what happens is, I'm not worried about the software. You and I can talk about that after the board leaves. The board, if you'd like to stay, we're happy to have you stay. Suffice to say, when I'm scanning ballots, you wanted to see how fast it was. Again, these would be absentees.
You said front and back?
Front front and back simultaneously. Yeah. So it's reading both sides simultaneously. Now, you'll notice I had a ballot that was torn on the bottom. I had a ballot that had been thoroughly crumpled, right? I didn't have any blood stains, sorry. I'm willing to bleed for my company, but only accidentally, not on purpose. Let's see. There's one in here somewhere. I won't say, oh, I didn't put that one in, it's in the other box. Here's one that's been folded a bunch of times. These scanners handle anything. I had a demo in Utah. I spent a lot of time in Utah in addition to Pennsylvania. I said, do your worst. I should have known not to say that. The county clerk, who's in charge of elections, comes up, gets a ballot, fills it out, proceeds to go over, there's a sink in the corner of the room. Took his Diet Coke, poured the Diet Coke all over the ballot, shook it off, and came over and said, here, scan it. Put it in, ran right through. So coffee stains, blood stains, those random stains, you're like, I don't even want to know what that is. It doesn't matter. If some, what's that? People are very talented when especially with their absentee ballots. People are very talented.
Oh, that's true, absentee.
Yeah, absentee. Yeah, in person. Well, in person, you know, all you need, kid with a sippy cup sits up on the booth, voting booth, tips it over, you know. Sometimes you get these, right? Timing mark is gone. It uses these marks to tell where the ovals are, X, Y coordinate. If this is gone, it doesn't know what we're doing. It still reads it, and you can actually take this into adjudication and say, it'll show this to you, and you're going to see the 2 or the name or whatever it is. You go, oh, that's precinct 2. And you're going to say, that's precinct 2. It says, okay, and it applies it to the ballot. So again, we eliminate the need to remake that. Is that pretty? I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory, right? It's pretty simple, easy, quick. This does 2,000 an hour. Canon will tell you 3,000. But when I say 2,000, that includes human factor in that. Meaning, okay, this stack is done. You know, back in the precinct folder, okay, next precinct, got it, you know, that type of thing. So in a practical setting, you're about 2,000 an hour. The large one does 3,000, Canon will tell you 4,000. So I don't think you would even want to consider the big one, unless you just like fancy things. But hey, you know, nothing wrong with that. Any questions on that part? It's very straightforward, very simple.
Is that why you have 2 in ballot, because you had like...
So yeah, they would have had missing things. So what it's going to do is it's going to tell you, okay, I can choose to stop on them if I want. I don't need to because in this case I have adjudication here, so I can take it and look at it digitally. I could have had to kick them out, in which case we would have pulled them out and hand remade them. And we have a neat little process for when that happens too. But in this case it would say, okay, and I can either leave them in there, or if I want, it'll say, okay, this is number 7 and 8, I just go count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Oh yeah, here's a timing mark. So if you wanted to keep it a manual process, you would either stop or just when it alerts you, you would take it out.
You don't have to buy adjudications, which is...
You don't have to, it's completely optional. So like I said, you tell me what you want, you give me a list of like priorities, and this is what I want, but here's the number I have to be under, or something of that nature, and then I say, okay, here's what we can do, and you say, well, I really want an adjudicator. I said, well, you know, you gave me this number, so unless you can convince the 3 of them to give you more, so, and it's not that expensive, but you know, when you get up to your budget line, you gotta make choices sometimes. So that's that. And again, we can play with this after as much as people want to. I am happy to let you play with it. That's fine, I just want everyone to see it. I'm gonna jump over here to this. Sorry, I keep having to make you move your camera, I apologize. But I wanna leave the best for last. So this is the scanner. Every time you start it up, it'll tell you a little bit about itself, what election is loaded and what it's doing. And what we do is, a voter would vote on, as we talked about, one of 2 different methods, just depending on what you choose. They would walk up. It's going to check the ballot. It'll check the ballot for whatever you said before, Michael. Overvotes, undervotes, blank races, and it'll either kick it back or accept it. It's up to you. A voter, if they want to, if they've left a race blank, which is their right, or their whole ballot blank for that matter, there'll simply be a button on the screen that says ignore. So it'll kick it back, it'll tell them blank race, blank ballot. They would simply hit ignore, feed it in again, and it'll simply say, okay, I didn't want to make sure. All right? That's the paper ballot. Now, you have DREs, and since you're used to DREs, I would recommend that you stick with ballot marking devices, which essentially is as close to a DRE as you're going to get, because it's going to print this out. This unit already is going to check for overvotes. It's going to alert you to undervotes. And what that does is, it makes your life easier here, because you don't have people coming up, putting a ballot like this in, and waiting to see if they're going to get an error message. And if they do get an error message going, what does this mean? because that's what they're going to do, right? We all know that. And then a poll worker has to come over, and meanwhile, there's 3, 4, 5 people behind them going, come on, come on. We get rid of that. So when you do this, we can still check for all that if you want. Now, it's going to time out on me, so I'm going to go ahead and put my password in one more time here. Because it's sat for so long. Hope I put the right password in.
I assume you could set that for how long, however
Yeah.
long you'd want it to be.
Correct. There we go. All right.
Can you turn it off?
What's that?
Can you turn it off, not to whatever, just?
It will time out eventually because it's a security measure.
Okay.
Because what it's saying is if a voter or a poll worker doesn't interact with it, we don't know where it is. And so, you know, if it's in an empty room because everyone went to lunch and no one thought to turn the machine off and lock it up, we want to make sure that someone's not doing anything with it. Okay. So this, you'll notice I have 2 red arrows. Take my ballot. Wait for it here, get it in here. That's the ultimate gate, there we go. It's gonna check it, if there's a problem. There you go, so now it's gonna tell me it's gonna give me an issue. So let's see what. Okay, so I have this set and I left something blank. This is actually a blank ballot, so I can get this. So it tells me what it is and it tells me on the screen. In this case, I don't care, so I'm going to press ignore validation. This will scan any of the 4 orientations you want to scan in. And it's going to ignore the fact that I have blank races. Again, if you're using all ballot marking devices, you can do that if you want to be doubly sure, but that's going to warn you anyway, so I tend to turn it off. I have it on because I'm also demoing the paper ballot, so yeah, 'cause that's
Does it have to print every time you get a message? Or
no, you can just show it on the screen, or it'll print. You can not show it on the screen. It'll just have the button there, everything like that. So yeah, that's totally up to you. Yep, absolutely. So that's what happens, and all day long that's what happens. One thing you'll notice is with some other systems, I can tell you have a question, so I'll get to it. As soon as I mention this one thing, I'll be right there. One thing we did is we try and keep it simple, okay? Other systems you're going to see have 2 slots. One for this size and one for this size. We looked at that and said, why? Why would you do that? The voter has to figure something out now. So one slot takes both sizes of paper. That way it's very easy. The only thing we do is we say, okay, you need to put the skinny ballot through the 2 red arrows. And the only reason that is because there's what's called a gate right here. It's a little sensor that only lets paper a certain thickness. It helps reduce double feeds. Okay, so there's a lot under the hood that we do, little things that we do to make sure everything goes right. So if you stick it over here, the gate, it doesn't hit the gate, or it can't check to see is there 1 ballot or 2 here. So that's the only reason these are here. Also, for those with visual impairments, and actually the gentleman from the DOS, or from the state rather, that was a visually impaired voter, he said he voted on this at the open house in Harrisburg. He voted on this by himself, was led by his assistant over to here, and was able to cast his ballot. He said, I've never done that in my entire life unassisted. Because what he did was the assistant put him in front of here, like so, and I'll now go back here so you can see. And he used his hands and he said, how do I know where to put my ballot? I said, follow the arrows. That's all I told him, follow the arrows. And there's you can't see it right here, but if you come up and look, there's arrows embedded in here. And he felt the arrows and went, got it, and put the ballot in, and it took it, and he said, that's the first time I've voted completely unassisted in my entire life. That was pretty cool, because I had never had, I've heard stories like that from the Unison folks before, but I had never been there when one happened, so that was pretty neat, and it made me think, wow, okay, I'm on, I'm with the right company here. But no, it's a very nice piece of equipment. Yeah, you had a question.
Yes, I guess I'm unclear.
Sure.
If this is printing out a paper that you take to there and
Right.
put through there, why can't you just put your absentee ballots in there?
Well, you can put your absentee ballots in here, but what's happening is, so if you're voting on this, you're voting in the polls. So you're talking about the end of the night, could you put your, okay. That is a process we can work through with Michael. We would have to, I'll be honest, I know a lot of election code, I don't know where this one stands, I don't know if they're allowed to process them.
I've heard some counties
Do they?
have
Okay,
them
I
that
have-
are paper now.
Yeah, I'd have to.
Have them process their
Right.
absentees at the precinct.
Right. So it is possible. I mean, the short answer, it is possible. One thing our system does is it tracks ballots by what we call session. Election day, absentee, provisional, so that you can tell what's what. So what we would do, most likely, we would have to talk it over, is either say, okay, we're gonna lump the absentees in with the election day, and we don't care, we don't need to track them individually. Or you could I don't know if I would, because it's more burden on the poll worker, not that it's that hard, but you could have them close out the election day session, start the absentee session, you know, and then you'd have reports for each one. We could talk about that, but yeah, short answer, it is possible. Yeah, but that's a process thing, and I would want to check, just because, as you know, just because counties do it doesn't always mean it's allowed, so.
And this
yeah.
scanner is one that's in his office,
Correct.
that's not at the
Right,
poll.
not at the, yeah, nope, just at his office. And like we talked about, based on the numbers you get, you might not even need that, just depending on what Michael wants, what you have budget-wise available to you. So yeah, we can, yes, correct. Yes,
Doesn't the law say that absentee ballots must be counted at the polls?
you must, as a poll worker, process them in terms of check the name against the poll book, make sure they didn't vote. Yes, you have to do that part of it. It doesn't necessarily have to be what we call tabulated or actually counted, if you will, at the polls. I'd have to read exactly how it reads to see if it's allowed to actually, because what happens is you're allowing a poll worker, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, to process, to count a ballot. And some states, and I just don't, I know the section, I can't see it and read it in my head. I don't know, some states are very clear that poll workers are not to ever feed a ballot into a scanner. That some places have to have a rep and a dem, some places have to have the election board, some places have to have the election director. Everyone's a little different. I don't think you have anything really particular in terms of election board or election director. I just don't know if it is allowed or if it's one of those gray areas, so we'll check, but yeah.
So they would just get a report, these are the voters, they have to post them in case they're challenged.
Right, exactly, all the same stuff you do now.
Okay.
Right, same things you do. So you would take it, you would look at the envelope, you'd say, no, they didn't vote in, you look at the poll book, they did not vote in person, they're good, there's nobody there to challenge it, saying they're dead and they shouldn't be. Yeah, you'd go through all that same process, and then send them back to Michael, and then Michael would take care of them as he normally does. So, but if we can find that the code allows it, and Michael wants to allow it, you can certainly do that at the poll.
Yeah, and Elaine, some people, what a lot of counties do is that if they're scanning them at the office, when they bring back the absentee ballots, they scan them, they make the judge wait.
Right.
Then they do the printout for that and give it back to them, and they have to run it back to the location.
So then they have to go back to the poll, so they might as
Right.
well do it there.
So-
Yeah, like I said, there's a million ways to do it. It's just, for instance, Susquehanna, they don't actually have a scanner at the polls. Everyone votes on paper. They put it in an old school ballot, metal ballot box. Everything comes back. They're scanned on scanners like this. They hand them. They print out a report like I showed you. I'll pretend this is it. They hand you the report, and on your way home, you stop by the polls and tape it to the door. And that way, they only have to buy that and one of these for the ADA requirement, and they don't have to buy all these. Some counties can do that. Some counties can't. They're used to it. They've been doing it for probably 10 years now, so it's normal to them. Other counties, you say that, they go back to the polls, so it just depends. So, yeah. Did I see did you have a question? Yes.
Since I've now gotten used to the screen,
Sure.
assuming if we're using paper ballots, does that little screen on the scanner tell you what your vote is before you?
That is an option, yes. I mean, Michael, there's a check, in the settings, when you configure it, there's a checkbox to say what's called full ballot review. It will display it on the screen and say, this is what, it'll scan it and say, this is what I'm seeing. And then you would be able to say, no, that's not what I wanted, and hit reject, and it'll spit it back out at you. And you can go spoil your ballot or fix it otherwise. Or you can say, yes, that's what I want, and it'll go through.
Wouldn't that disrupt the flow of?
You took the words out of my mouth. What I tell election directors is, please don't do that, okay? It's not that I'm against people double checking their ballot, but it especially in busy precincts, it slows things down. There are a few, and I mean like this many, in the United States that I know of that use this on a regular basis. And they have actually put 2 of these in every precinct because they found it slows it down so much. And they made the value judgment that they would rather have 2 of these but have that option enabled than to take that option off and just run with 1. So that becomes a...
We have had people complain.
Yeah, yes, believe me.
That, not that they found it, but they said, well,
How do I know?
There weren't enough votes in this precinct for who I voted for.
Right.
So obviously the machine's wrong.
Right, and I mean, I get the same question you ask in every county I go to. So it is an option, it's just a matter of, like I said, processes, and there's a trade-off to that. There's a practical trade-off in the county. Okay, I want to show you this, because I know you have to go here in a minute. So I have purposely left this off because I want you to see how quickly it is to set up. So first of all, when it comes to you, the top is over there. I won't show you the top. You can play with it. You simply unlock the top and rotate it, and it comes right off. You simply pull the screen up. The cord's back here. There we go. All right. You put it in whatever position you want. I'm going to put it all the way up so you can see it. If you need there's a little bin back here. If you need the ADA keypad, you can pull this out. There is a binary input right here for a sip and puff, jelly switch, foot pedal. There's another one that I always forget. I'll think of it here in a minute. You can set it there. Headphones go right in here where the headphone icon is, and you simply turn it on. And you'll see the green light right there, and you'll hear things start to go.
While we're waiting, what is the lifespan for this machine?
So I'm watching the clock to
Yes,
tell you how many
yes.
seconds. So, they are designed, I'm gonna give you two answers. They are designed per the federal guidelines to last 7 to 10 years, which is what the federal guidelines state. They must be manufactured. It is now ready for voting, and it has taken less than 30 seconds, up 27 seconds. Pretty easy, right? I mean, that's, poll workers, easy? Okay. So like I said, it is now ready for voting. There are two ways to activate this machine. You can either use a code, or you can use, right here, one of these, a barcode. You can get these barcodes from two places. You can print a master, so you think of it like a PEB, right? Where only the poll workers would have access to them, you're not gonna hand it to a voter. Or, if you have a poll book, it will print them dynamically, so I looked Michael up. Michael's we'll say independent, because I don't wanna get you in trouble one way or the other. So, it prints out his independent, or maybe that gets you in more trouble, I don't know. Nonpartisan, no affiliation. It will print out the appropriate barcode for you, Rep, Dem, or if it's general, ballot. You would hand it to the voter can then go up, and you eliminate a poll worker, and they can simply initiate their own ballot by scanning the barcode. It will then bring up the ballot for them. Okay, the other way is to have a poll worker type in the precinct ID number. Okay, so no PEB, they would just come over, you get the authority to vote slip, thank you, precinct 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever the code would be, and the ballot would come up. So here it's gonna say, okay, here's the ballot. All right, at all times we have our settings, so the voter can change whether we need high contrast, there's a medium contrast, or normal. They can change the audio volume or tempo rather, or the volume. They can check whatever text size they would like. And they can do this anytime, so the poll workers don't have to do any of that for them. And they can get to it at any point in the screen. You're gonna go ahead and start. Well, we also always have our instructions, and it'll tell you what you need to do. You can sit in here, you can see all the different instructions with nice little graphics. But we're gonna say we're ready to vote. So we're gonna go ahead and vote. And now it's going to go through race by race, and we simply vote. You're probably used to seeing this, so I'm not gonna bore you with how to press a button. What I will tell you is, this is a tablet, which means we have some neat features. We have the navigation buttons, front, forward, and back, but we also can swipe, because we're fancy here. There we go.
I'll see your vote.
So it's both.
Swipe or
So
have
if you get someone who's like, I got this, they're swiping back and forth, absolutely. If you have someone that says, no, I like the forward and backward buttons, then we have that for them too.
See, I was told you could do that with your machine.
Oh, well then someone is spreading
wrong.
rumors. I'm ready to rumble
So you
now.
have both.
Okay, yeah, you can do both. Yes, you can, absolutely.
And if you press that question mark, where does it take you?
To the instruction screen. And when you press back, it takes you to right where you left off. We want to make this as easy as possible for people. Same thing with the settings. You say, oh, I hit that by mistake. Just hit the back button, it takes you right back. At any time, the voter can cancel their session, their vote. We hope they don't do that, but if they needed to for some reason, it's right there. It will ask them a confirmation, are you sure?
Would it just allow them to start over? Is that what you're saying?
Well, they would have to come get either a new barcode, or the poll worker would have to come back and reinitialize the machine for them.
So it's canceling period.
Canceling period.
So it doesn't count as anything, like at that point? Like, would it count it as?
That's really your interpretation of the election code. Because technically they haven't, in my mind, as a former election official and as having done this for well over a decade now, I would say no. Because they haven't generated a ballot yet.
Right.
Now, if they print this and go, holy smokes, I did not mean to vote for that person. Now you have to spoil this. This is a ballot. You have a number, it's on the wrong screen, but back on the original screen, there's a counter down here.
Right, that's
it
what I'm
tells you,
asking.
so that now you're like, I have to account for a ballot that's been printed. If I cancel right now, that number doesn't change.
Okay.
So it's a process thing. I tend to say, no, it doesn't. You could say, I want to be really strict and have a very narrow interpretation of the law, and you could say yes, but I think that
Well,
would give you
see,
more
the
headaches.
reason why I asked is because we would have a list of number of voters that
Right.
we know that came through, and I want
Right.
that to match what that
Right.
says.
Although if Jonathan does get his way, the NLV will go away, but if you get electronic poll books.
Well, yeah.
So. So we go through, oh, you wanted to write in? So this is a write-in. This is our screen for the write-in right here. So we're gonna go ahead and vote for Michael. Now, what you're gonna notice is I have to kind of go very deliberately here on the touching the buttons. That is a federal requirement. They've required that there be a pause because, especially on the Diebold machine, I know because I hear it way too often, people got, especially now, they're used to things, smartphones and tablets, and they're used to it going very quickly. So they hit next, 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 and the button, if it doesn't respond right away, they hit it again and again and again. And then it all of a sudden registers 35 next clicks and blows through the rest of the ballot and casts a blank ballot or a partially voted ballot. And they're standing there going, what? I wasn't done yet. So what they said is, no, we want you to make you, so it's very deliberate so that it won't register. If someone's sitting there doing this, it won't register that. Or if someone even has a little bit of palsy, my grandfather had that, and he would sit here and he would shake and he might accidentally double tap on something. So it doesn't register that. So it's not like we're purposely like slowing these down or something like that. So now this is a really neat feature of ours as well. When you have more candidates that will fit on a screen, some companies, and I don't know which ones you've seen yet, so I don't know which ones, if you've seen it yet or not, you have to go to next page, next page, next page. You might forget what you've done on the first page. It's back and forth, back and forth. Here what we do is we do not let you go. First of all, we scroll down. It's all on one scroll, okay? We don't have to, there are no multiple pages. The other thing is we do not let you go to the next race until you've seen every name. Now, to be fair, I can't track your eyes. Well, I mean, the technology's out there, but we don't have it incorporated. We can't track your eyes to make sure you've looked at everyone. But everyone will be displayed on the screen. So if you vote for the first 3 people on this ballot, and you're like, I'm done, you still have to scroll through everyone. So this reduces complaints, doesn't eliminate it, you'll never eliminate them all, but it reduces the comments of, well, I'm at the bottom, how do I know? We're gonna make them look at you. Now, they might gloss over you because they've already got who I want, but they're going to look at you. And you're going to have screen time.
Does it say that on the screen? I saw there's a red thing there.
It'll simply say more, it'll say in the instructions, it'll simply say more candidates, and the only button available to them is down.
Okay.
As soon as they go down, then the next button activates. So they would be sitting here and they would say, and pardon me if I'm cutting anyone off here, they would be up here and they'd say, oh, I want to go next. Oh, there's my next button. And so they would still get there. They just would have to go down first.
Okay.
And if you had 35 candidates, you would go all the way down. Same thing with the measure. There's more text, so you can scroll down or use the buttons. Yes and no float on the top, so you don't have to like, oh, I'm at the top, I gotta scroll all the way down. So it's always there. We do not force you to read the whole thing. And when you're done, you're gonna click done.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure,
Just
absolutely.
Click on that.
Sure.
All right, so the thing that keeps me up at night with the iVos is
Yes.
calibration.
Sure.
Tell me about.
Not an issue.
Thank you.
Go Google how many tablets have had calibration errors. It does not happen with tablets. So I have never heard, since we've implemented these, I have never heard of a single one. The EAC couldn't make it happen. Our private independent testing lab couldn't make it happen. And like I said, I've never had a client have it happen either. Since I also sell poll books, now granted this is iPad, this is Android, so different, I have never gotten a single complaint about these either. And there are, by the end of this year, will be over 20,000 of these in the United States, just from 10X alone, and then Knowing still has their eye. So there are tens of thousands and never a single complaint about calibration. So you can check that one off your list. You'll notice that on our summary screen, I have a red area. And what it's saying is no selection. I didn't make a selection in that race. So all I have to do is say, okay, take me there. And it takes me straight to that race. I can leave it blank, of course, if I want. If I missed it, I'd say, oh, I missed it. I click done, takes me straight back, and now the red is gone. The same would happen if I had voted for 2 and it was a vote for 3. It would have been red, and it would have said, okay, you can go ahead and go back. Okay, I have my write-in right here, so it's right here. And I go ahead and hit print. When I'm satisfied, I would hit print. At this point, it then generates the ballot, and it will print it out. This ballot will be as long as your absentee ballot. They are going to be the same length, and this is a security measure, the layer of security. Because if this is 17 inches long, and this is 11 inches long, This unit's gonna say, well, wait a minute, why is one shorter than the other? That doesn't make any sense, because we have one slot. So we wanna make sure everything is exactly the same. That also prevents someone from doing what we all know is gonna happen. You'll notice there's a summary up here. Can anyone tell me, someone's gotta know, what's the first thing some voter's gonna do?
Read it.
Read it, sure, there you go, rip it up. Oh, my receipt, great! All right, let me know, right? And it's gonna go, not gonna happen, because giving you a receipt is illegal. So it doesn't allow it, okay? So that is the reason that we check the length, for a multitude of reasons. 2 different reasons, security and to make sure that you're not breaking federal law. Make sense? Yes.
On the tablet,
Yes.
when a voter comes up and steps up, is he gonna have to go through, setting the font, setting this?
Only if they want to. So you'll see so I'm gonna do a manual one just to show you the other way of doing it. So it's the first thing it's gonna do, so that a voter just doesn't randomly come up here and do this, is it's gonna ask you for the election password. You set this. All of the passwords given are generated by the system for security reasons. But this one, you can make whatever you want. I have a super secret password of 1234566A. Demos only. And I will punch in a precinct code. And then it will give me that precinct. So this is what a voter would get when the voter steps up to it. Either they're going to use their barcode, or the poll worker is going to initialize it for them. And they will have that button there, only if they touch that button. If they just come up and say, great, let me start, then it's just going to go ahead. Come on, that's what happens when you do it from an angle. It'll just let them start. But if they want to, then they can just go in there and say, okay, let me do that. But they don't have to. Yes?
I have a question.
Sure.
The previous time, I think, when we purchased machines,
Okay.
is there any relationship between Unisys and Unison?
No. The 2 companies, no. They just happen to have a name that sounds alike.
Never associated?
Never.
Where is your home office?
Election IQ's home office is Akron, Ohio. Unison's home office is Vista, California, which is, for those who don't know, is San Diego, just north of San Diego.
And is the parent company in Malaysia?
Of Unison?
Yes.
Yeah, well, the parent company of Unison is actually ILTS, International Lottery and Totalizer Systems, and they are actually in the same building as Unison.
So your parent company is
The
not Malaysia?
parent company of Unison is ILTS, and if you go, you can go on their website, and ILTS.com, I don't believe they spell it out, and it is International Lottery and Totalizer Systems, and they're in the same building at 2310 Cousteau Court in Vista, California.
Okay, because in Harrisburg, they told me Berjaha.
Berjaya?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Malaysia.
I know, yeah. There is another parent company that is a holding company, so that company owns ILTS. That company is in Malaysia, but they don't actually, other than the fact that it's on paper, and if you look at the AC, it'll say about 3 million rounds down in, that there is, Mr. Tan is his name, Alex Tan, is the owner of Berjaya. But everything here in the US is managed by ILTS.
Managed by.
Yes, so the parent company, Unison, the only time Unison has anything to do with Berjaya is when he physically comes over once a year to simply say, hi, how is everything, what's going on? Everything else, from budgets to management and anything else, is done by ILTS, because that is the parent company. So that
And
is all
where is
that
everything manufactured?
in the United States. Well, okay. Obviously, some components, like for instance, Star Micronics, some of their components come from Taiwan. The motherboard in here, I believe, also comes from Taiwan. But all the assembly and real manufacture is in Vista, California. It's all under one roof.
Okay. And then, can you, in simple yeses or
Sure.
nos, you're federally certified?
Yes.
You're state certified?
I did not. The state certified, yes, and no. This is the 2.0 system I'm showing you. We are certified in PA with 1.3. But because this is out now, and this is already in PA certification, we expect it to be out in August, possibly Labor Day, as I explained to Michael, just depending on Jonathan and his team processing paper. This is now the replacement for the 1.3 system. So what happened was 1.3 was getting certified. PA, because of their standards, took so long to get us through certification. We had already developed this, so we didn't want to cancel that certification, so we just let it go through. But this was already out, and every county we've shown this to has said, well, I don't want the old thing, I want the newest thing out there, which will be this. Actually, in your folder, there is the flyer for both, and you can see this is much better, as you saw it booted up in about 27 seconds.
What folder?
I have more for everyone else. They had the 3. I didn't get around to put them all in the chairs. I can get more. I have a whole bunch in the back. Before you leave, let me know and I'll get them for you. There's flyers for both. The other one is like this and runs a Linux PC inside of it, and it took more like 4 to 5 minutes to boot up. So if everyone says, well, is there a price difference? No. Well, then I want the newest thing. So we are federally certified for everything. We are state certified for 1.3, and we are about 2 months away from being certified here with 2.0.
I can confirm that, by the way. The state gave us a list of people going through the state certification, and ES&S and Unison their totals will be complete late August.
And can you verify, was your company founded in 2001 or 2010?
Election IQ was 2010.
And what about the other part of your company?
Election IQ?
Yeah, I'm confused what's going on.
So we are an independent dealer for Unison.
Ah.
Okay? So there are 2 different models in the election world. There is I'll call it the ES&S model, where everything. So everybody works for ES&S. They're paid by ES&S. You pay ES&S. All your invoices go to ES&S. It's all one gigantic company, and that's what they do. The other method is what's called the dealer model, where there's a manufacturer, Unison. They manufacture everything.
So they were founded in 2001.
Correct. Yes.
Because I got 2 different.
Right. Yeah.
I'm trying to get straight.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. But Election IQ was in 2010. Yes.
All right. If somebody else has some more, I'll get the rest of my questions lined up.
I had a question.
Sure.
When you adjust the screen, the individual voter, the next time it comes up, does it come up in the,
It reverts back to the default, which is right here.
Okay.
Yeah. So if someone sets it to the high contrast, black and white, it's not going to then come up for the next one. It will reset every time.
Good.
Only because I know you have to go at some point, or might have to go at some point. Do either of you gentlemen have any questions or things that are specific, things that you didn't see?
You did
Okay.
an excellent
All
job,
right.
thank you.
Would you have time to see the poll book quickly? I did ask him to bring the poll book. I don't know if you have to go, but if we have time, I would like you to at least fire up the poll book.
Yeah, it's up. I can.
Yeah, if you don't mind just
Sure.
doing that.
Sure.
here.
I'll do that while I answer your question.
Yeah.
Yes.
My other important question to me is, do these all run on batteries, and how long do the
Okay,
batteries
that's an excellent. I was going to move on to the warehouse portion, which includes batteries, but that is actually a great question. So what we do is we don't actually have built-in batteries for a very specific reason, and you can probably speak to this, Michael. Right now, Ivotronics, Diebold, TSXs, if you want to replace the battery, you have to use the same battery that was 10 years old. Now, they're manufactured newer, but it's the same technology. What happens is they're extremely expensive because this battery technology from back then is antiquated. We actually build batteries for the Diebold system for our customers, and we have to there's only one company that still makes the individual cells that make up the battery packs. And they have to come over on a boat from Japan over here, and then they're manufactured into the battery pack. It takes 12 weeks because there's only one company that does it still. And they're very expensive. I could do a lithium battery, which is the newer style, for half the price. But I can't because the current ones are certified. And Diebold doesn't exist anymore, so they're not going to go through certification, of course, with it. There's no one there to certify it. So what we did, we said, we want to make this easy on you. So when that comes up, because batteries last 5 to 7 years, depending on who you talk to. So what we do is we use UPS systems, the uninterruptible power supplies, like you have maybe at your desk, little battery backups that you plug your computer into. We have ones that they're off the shelf. So what's really great is, if they completely die, you just buy a new one. But when the battery dies, you don't have to do it. You can buy whatever, you can come to us, we'll get it for you. We have no problem getting it and installing it for you. But what happens is, if they say, well, battery technology has evolved, so now there's a lighter weight battery, it's smaller, it's cheaper, whatever, great, we buy that new one, whatever you want, we simply open the little door, take the old one out, put the new one in, close it up, and you're good to go. Plus, you can run 5 or 6 of them, well, you can run more than that, but the one we generally sell, you can run 5 to 6 of these on a single UPS system, so you don't have to have 5 or 6 individual batteries, you have one battery. So it actually makes your cost much more efficient because you're doing it that way. Does that make sense?
Is that for all your pieces of equipment?
All the pieces of equipment.
Okay, then clarify for me, that one you said 2,000
An hour. Yes.
How many does this process?
750.
if the
Well-
people can walk fast.
Well, so this is the issue, and yeah, the difference comes, a lot of this stuff, scanners specifically, is based on humans. I have gotten this to do 2,500 an hour. The big one that said does 3,000 and Canada says 4, I can make it do 4 an hour, because I've been doing this a long time, and I know, I have my stacks lined up, as soon as that gets down to a certain point, I have my next stack ready, and it won't even stop. It takes the last ballot, I get the new stack in there, and it keeps going. But that's not what normally happens. You're doing it by precinct, you're doing it by batches of 100, you're doing it whatever it is, and so that slows the process down. Here, the biggest issue, if you're using it, say, for absentees, because under normal circumstances, you're not gonna, as you said, you're not gonna have voters walking up fast enough to do 750 an hour. What you'll notice is, and this is gonna be blank, so it's gonna kick it back out to me, but it's going to take it and then think for a minute. I can't feed one in, it's still red. I still have my traffic light is still red. So I can't feed another one in until it verifies the ballot and drops it into the ballot box. So you have to sit there, you're going, 1, okay, there's another one. So it's slower because it has to wait to verify, whereas that is verified, the internal process is a little different, so that's why. So 750, 2,000, 3,000 for the big one that I showed you on the screen. So there's 3 different levels.
Did
Yes?
you finish with your answer on how long they last?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. So they're designed to go 7 to 10 years, but what we've found is they last much longer. There's really no way short of, and this is where we get into, as you see different vendors, I'll tell you to pay attention to this. There are vendors out there that use all off-the-shelf hardware, 100% off-the-shelf hardware. And there are vendors out there that build all their stuff in-house and it's all proprietary, okay? I'm not gonna name names because it doesn't really matter. The difference is this: when you get all off the shelf, then you have cords. You have things like, and you've seen this, it's a computer monitor, touchscreen computer monitor with the power cords, and you've got to have it hooked to a PC that runs it, and then you have headphones, and then you've got a printer sometimes to hook up to it, and that's a lot for a poll worker to set up. But there's no, Apple, Samsung doesn't make a voting machine, so you have to cobble together a solution. On the other end of the spectrum, you have a company, or companies I should say, that build everything in-house. Now, they can make it look really slick because they can do whatever they want, they're building it. But you're also at their mercy because the minute you need a part, they're the only ones that can get it for you. So case in point, not necessarily with the new systems, but now, your PEBs, only because I hear this all the time, because people are asking me, can you get me PEBs? ES&S says, we're not making them anymore. So what are you gonna do? You can't do anything other than scour eBay for them. Okay? It just is what it is. I'm not being mean. I have friends that work in ES&S and they're great folks and they've got some great equipment. I'm not bagging on them at all. It's just, they're different models. Just like some, like ES&S, have everybody working for them and Unison has a dealer. There's pros and cons to all different ways of doing this. With regards to lifespan, what Unison has done is gone right down the middle. They're saying, okay, we're going to use off-the-shelf stuff. We're going to use an off-the-shelf tablet. We're going to use an off-the-shelf printer, an off-the-shelf USB hub, power supplies. But we're going to make a custom enclosure, so we take all those cords and we hide them. If I take all this off, you'll see there's cords in here that connect the tablet to the power source to the printer to the tablet. There's wires in there, but we don't want the poll workers to have to mess with them. So we put it in a nice enclosure, and there you go. But this is made by a large company, okay, it's called GeForce. They make a lot of what I call private label tablets, so they make tablets for all sorts of industries. If you walk up to like the Coke machines, they don't make this particular one, but the Coke machines now you can choose what you want. You can, they make screens and tablets for all those types of applications. So they're making these for everyone. So if version A is end of life because there's new battery technology or new whatever fine. We simply put version B in there. Yes, we have to get it certified, and that's where we come in to do that. But we simply go there. The scanners in here, the read heads in here, are actually used in a multitude of industries, including the lottery and horse track racing industries. They go through such intense scrutiny and durability testing because of just the volume in which if you've ever been to a racetrack, and I've only been once, but it's very little, I mean, a lot of people are there, and there's a lot of paper that gets scanned because they do it all that way. You don't have to have humans verifying things now. They go through, these read heads can handle 1 million ballots or pieces of paper, depending on what industry you're in, before they need to be replaced. How long would it take you to feed 1 million ballots through one of these? Long time. So when we talk about longevity, technically we make it to 7 to 10 years. But there are read heads that are in here, out there in the Philippines, oddly enough, that are stored in unair-conditioned warehouses with humidity and everything else, and they're 20 years old and they're still going. So when I say 7 to 10 years with an asterisk, it's because I anticipate that I can show up 20 years from now, and there's going to be counties, assuming the governor doesn't make them change, or anybody else makes them change, that would still have these running. Yes.
On the question, I think though, what they're trying to get at with
Oh,
the
sorry.
batteries.
Oh,
and
the batteries.
I'm gonna try to
Sorry.
rephrase it a different way.
Sure.
If the power goes out,
Oh, the battery, yeah.
how long will a battery last?
Oh, I thought you were about, I thought your question was how long when they built this.
I'm
the
assuming
lab.
that's what we're trying
Sorry.
to get at, is how long, yeah.
That, okay, that was yours.
Like
So-
2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours?
So from a battery perspective, sorry, I thought she was asking about lifespan,
That's okay.
not battery span. Sorry, my fault.
She did say lifespan.
Oh, okay, So with regards to that, it's up to you. And the reason I say that is this. The standard UPS system I give you gets about 2 hours. But if you tell me, Dan, we have a lot of power outages, or it keeps me up at night, we can get you one that'll last for 20 hours. It's gonna be, it's gonna be on wheels, but we can do that. So
This is a separate unit, is what you're telling
Separate
me,
unit, yeah,
that
and it's-
everything would plug into.
Right, it's just like if I walk around this office, there's probably some on people's computers, and they're about yay high. They're not very big at all, they're about 2 hours. But again, if you tell me you want larger, there are a multitude of models in the line, and we can just size
The
it up.
longer the battery, the bigger it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's a place, I mean, there's different types we can get, so you tell me, like, there are some on wheels, there are some that get really tall, there are some that are really thin and narrow, because they're made to go in like server racks, so you tell me what you're trying to do, space constraints, time you want, uptime, everything else, we're fine. This battery on here, on the tablet's a 10-hour battery. The only issue is the printer needs power to run. So again, I say 2 hours. If there's voters, if there's really high turnout, it could be a little less than that. If no one's voting, you might get 4 hours. So, but under normal usage, on the average, usage, it's 2 hours. Based on the standard model that we give you. Like I said, we give you a lot of flexibility, so that's why it's really incumbent on you to say at least what you think you want. If you don't know what you want in terms of hours, then we'll certainly help you. We'll say, well, this is what we think, so.
Pardon me,
Yep.
they're looking for me for 3 o'clock.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, my card's in there. Feel free to email me or have Michael get hold. Yep.
Hey, you need your letter?
Nope.
I do, thank you.
When you're all finished,
Sure.
could I come up and could you take me
Yes,
through?
yes,
the
absolutely, yes,
process?
absolutely,
That would be
absolutely.
great.
Absolutely. So, now we finally get to, sorry, we finally get to, I will come back as many times as you want, absolutely. So now we're gonna go to the poll books. The poll books are really great.
See you later, Dave.
And again, they work with any system out there, so these are totally separate. These make poll workers' lives really, really easy. They also make your life really, really easy. In the back office, things like you don't have to, there's no more as so affectionately called binking, with the little barcode over here, bing, 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 for all the voter history.
Can you come closer?
Oh, sure, yeah, as soon as I start going to the, yeah.
Layers.
Okay, I will
You
adjust.
have to tip them down.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah, just let me know, and
Okay.
I'll be happy to. So, it will speed up your process, because all that happens is when these walk through the door, we have a closed loop wireless network in your office, and it picks it, it senses it, it automatically pulls the data, and puts it on the server in your office, and then when you're ready, you commit it to Sure, and it updates, so your voter history is a matter of minutes instead
I
of.
didn't think we were able to do anything wireless with poll books though. I thought it was all had to
That's
be-
because I'm a magician. No, I'm not really. The way these are certified with the state,
Uh-huh.
thumb drives with iPads are really a pain. Just the way Apple does it. So we set it up where these can only be programmed wirelessly with a series of authentications and everything else. And I'm not going to go into the security of that because that's a whole hour
But you did get
presentation.
certified that way through the state.
Our certification reads that we cannot have connectivity from the time the polls open until the time the polls close.
Okay.
But all other times, we are okay. All right? Now, we have to meet certain data standards and all that, and we do all that. And if you want to get into that, we can get into that at a later date. But we meet all those security requirements and then some. But that's how we do it. So the minute you walk through the door, is how we generally set it up. It starts getting this information, and so like I said, you don't even know what's happening. It's happening in the background, and then you just log in and say, it says I'm all done. And it's okay, commit to Vista, and then depending on how the state wants that, we can either link straight to Vista, or you can take a thumb drive and as we call it, sneaker netting, and walk it over to your web terminal and upload it. So it makes your life easy. It also makes your life easy and the poll workers to an extent, is that you can enforce workflows. So you don't have to accidentally give someone the wrong ballot because you grabbed it out of the wrong stack, or you used the wrong PEB and you initialized the system wrong. We can make sure to do that. All right, we can make, if someone reads the authority to vote slip wrong, we can do that. We can also look up every voter in the county. So if someone comes in and they're not in our precinct, it will tell us, and we can actually print them out directions so that they can get on their way. So right here it tells me, and I apologize, I normally have this up on the screen, but I did not today. Well, here's a home screen. It tells us battery level, what precinct we're in, how many people have checked in. All right, this is for Clarion, as everyone can see. They have piloted these. You can ask Cindy if you have any questions. She's actually seen these. It's going to ask us to log in. I'm just going to put in my first and last initial, just because. And I'm going to enter the password. You can set the password. It's going to search for the printer. I did not turn it on. You don't have to use this with a printer. That is not a requirement at all. And it's going to tell us, here we are. This is where you spend the majority of your day. If you get a glare, just let me know. And you can play with these later when we come up, so that's fine. Right now, I have it set up for ID. Okay, I personally believe that ID will come back around the state, and at some point, they're going to at least allow you, if you want to use your ID, you can, even if it's not mandatory. That's my personal opinion. I don't know if it will. This can handle it either way. If you do have ID, we can actually you can hold it right back here. You just put it right back on the back edge, just hold it there. The camera will read the barcode on the back of your driver's license or military ID or any of those, and it will recognize you and pull you up if you're in the system. The other way we do it is simply do it manually, which is how everyone else does it now. So we're going to go ahead and
We
search.
would so do the driver's license.
What's that?
I would so do the driver's license.
I am not going to have an opinion on that since political parties are in the room.
Well, what we do is we don't require them. So
Right.
we ask them, and if they don't want to show us
Right.
ID, then they don't have to.
Right.
Obviously.
And
But
what-
I can tell you 95% of the people we deal with
Right.
want to give
Okay.
us ID.
I know counties, not in the state of Pennsylvania and other states, they put a sign outside saying, please have your ID ready for speedier check-in. Or faster check-in, the wording said. So, it's not required, but if you want to, you can do it, it's fine. Okay, so anyway, so we have different ways to search. You control this. Almost everything you see here, you can control. So I have 3 search methods: last name and birth year, last name and first name, and voter ID. We can also do house number and your address. We can do it because there's 5 different ones. I think we added 1 or 2 that, or at least that we're thinking about adding 1 or 2. Hasn't been done quite yet. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to do first and last name. I'm going to bring up Cindy from Clarion.
So this would be with you, or would that replace the
No,
poll books?
this would replace the poll book.
The printed poll books.
So I haven't even typed in her whole name. And it's going to go ahead and it's going to go ahead and search. Let's see. Oh, no Voter-verifiable. Let's see. Oh, that's because I'm in the wrong precinct. Hang on. That's right. Let's see. Oh, I also switched it. Let's see. We're going to go ahead and see.
So we have 3, we got 3 now.
No, you only need 1 of these technically. There we go. There's Judy.
Bigger precincts could possibly have 2.
Right. What we tell everyone is to buy 2, and even if you only use 1, because what they do is they're constantly replicating back and forth to each other, so that for redundancy purposes, so that way you don't have to print a paper poll book on top of sending these out. So what that does is it's greener. It saves you from having to do it because a lot of people print them in house. You can, if you have them printed out of house, you can get rid of that bill. And if you get busy, they just grab the other one and start going. You don't have to segregate the list by A, B, C, A to M and N to Z and things like that. So here is the voter, and I realize you can play with this as much as you want later. It shows us our voters, so we simply say, is this you? Yes, correct. It also tells us that there's 2 people in a different location. So it's going to say, so if they say, well, that's not me, you're automatically going to say, oh, well, there are these other folks in the rest of the county. Is one of these you? Oh, yes, that's me. Well, in that case, it's then going to say, okay, you have, the way I have it set up now, you have 2 options. Option 1 would be to give them a provisional, which we all know when we're supposed to issue those. And option 2 would be to what we call redirect. Basically, you're saying, oh, I'm sorry, you're actually not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be across town at the such and such church or elementary school or whatever it is, and then you can give them directions or the address, whatever you might want to do.
How does that handle a person having the right to vote one last time if they've moved, vote one last time in their...
This handles it just like your poll book. So anything, any notations in your poll book that you see now, whether it needs assistance, show a first-time voter, so they need ID, those all show up. What will happen is, when I pull her up, continue, it's going to show me all the information about her that we have. Now in this case, she's not eligible to vote because she's already voted. So it's going to tell us this. So we can walk you through. So even a first-time poll worker who said, I don't really know what I'm doing, I'm not sure, I know I went to training, but we guide you through it step by step. So it makes it very, very easy to do. Yes?
So, I have a problem with this.
Okay. Hopefully I can
The
alleviate it.
other machines
Right.
are not set up for Wi-Fi, but before I left the room, you said this is the only one
Okay.
that is set up for
Right.
Wi-Fi, because that's the only way it can communicate. And I have articles that bring the CCAP manuals,
Sure.
magazines that
Right.
are sent out to all the county commissioners.
Sure.
And they have problems with
Okay.
these. And to me, somebody coming in with a handheld wireless,
Right. Okay. So the part you stepped out on, I don't know if you heard then, was they are only allowed to be connected wirelessly up until the polls open and once the polls close.
but even if my computer is closed and turned off, somebody from, I don't know, Russia can hack into my computer.
I'm going to give you the short answer. If you want the long answer, I will be more than happy to get the president of 10X, because he's the tech guru, and he can tell you all that you want, because there's words that even I don't understand that he uses with regards to the security levels of this. What I can tell you is this. This communicates with a server that is in the cloud. It's Amazon Web Services. It is the government sector. The Pentagon uses it, DOD uses it, State Department, White House, a lot of them use this, okay? So from a security standpoint, they're making sure that it's locked down the way it should be. When we say we turn off communication, what we mean is, yes, we turn these off, but we turn off the server. So even if someone were to somehow get in, they're not gonna get in here and they're not gonna get out there. All right, so they can't get in. We have had third-party penetration testing done, and they found 0 vulnerabilities. We go through this continually around every 18 to 24 months, depending on real-world scenarios and environments, and we go through this testing, like I say, every 18 to 24 months, and if they were to find something, of course, we would address it. But to date, they have found 0 vulnerabilities regarding to be able to get into this unit or the actual server that it runs on.
Dan, I don't wanna, just,
So-
they need this room because I need to have a quick meeting.
Oh,
So
sorry.
can we let
Yes.
the people see
Yes,
your
by all
stuff real
means.
quick and then
Yeah,
we can
sorry,
come back
yeah,
to that?
yeah, no, absolutely.
I'm sorry, I didn't know that was.
No, that's fine, that's fine. So
If
let's,
you guys wanna come up and see
come
your
on up, and
stuff.
I will,
Is it we're gonna have to-
if you want to vote on a ballot, I
What's that?
have, I
How
have,
much is the?
We have not talked to him about that yet, I just
Oh.
asked them to bring it, but we can, that's something I can find
Melanie
out.
really likes that. How much is it?
Yeah, they're asked about costs of poll books, you
Gotcha,
and I
yeah.
can talk about that.
yes, we can talk.
Yeah, if you guys wanna come up and see this, because we're gonna have to.
Yeah,
So
sorry, I didn't,
they
if I
have
known,
meetings.
I would have gone faster if I had
No,
known.
no, I just, he just.
Oh, he just told you, by the way, you
Yeah.
gotta, we're
Are you gonna be okay
Well,
with
they won't be.
when they meet,
They
have
won't
the
be
stuff
because
here, is it just a demo?
No,
Okay.
it's fine.
Alright,
I
so,
have one more question. Can you get me a written family tree or flow chart, whatever you wanna call
Right now, they
it, of all your companies?
Right now, they struggle with the
Manufacturers.
pages.
I agree.
Going forward or backwards.